Don't be ashamed. Get curious. See, your answer is still unfolding. Maybe the goal isn't to wake up one morning and say, I finally figured myself out completely. Maybe the healthier statement is, I'm finally paying attention to myself. Because self-discovery is not a destination where you arrive and never move again. It's a relationship. And see, a relationship with yourself, and like every meaningful relationship, you have to keep showing up. Keep asking questions, keep listening, keep learning, keep forgiving, keep growing, keep becoming. Because you may have spent years knowing everybody else's needs and never knowing your own.
Who am I? Yeah, I'm more than the pain, more than the pride. Who am I? Walking in purpose, no mask, no disguise. This is my voice, my rise, my life. Welcome to Who Am I?
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Who Am I podcast. I am so excited about today's episode. Today, we're going to be talking about who am I? What happens when you've lived a lifetime and still don't know the answer? But before we get into today's conversation, you already know what time it is. It's time for our pre-chat. And today, I don't want you to answer these questions quickly. Please don't. I want you to sit with them. I want you to be uncomfortable with them if you have to, because sometimes the questions we avoid are the very questions holding the keys to the life we're trying to find. So here we go. Pre-check question number 1. If somebody asks you right now, who are you? And you couldn't mention your job, your relationship status, your children, your accomplishments, your church, your titles, your education, or what you do for everybody else, what would you say? Think about it. Think about it for a second. Who are you when all the labels are removed? Question number 2. How much of the person you are today did you actually choose? And how much of it was handed to you? Was it handed to you by your parents, your childhood, by rejection, by trauma, by expectations, survival, by people who told you who you were before you were old enough to even decide for yourself? And finally, are you living as the person you discovered or the person you learned you had to become in order to survive? See, that's the pre-check. Keep those questions somewhere close today because we're coming back to them. So let me ask you something. What happens when you spend 70 years living but never spend enough time discovering who was doing the living? What happens when you raise children, gone to work, paid bills, loved people, lost people, survived disappointments, celebrated birthdays, attended funerals? You made mistakes, you even helped other people, and you accumulated 7 decades worth of memories. But one question still follows you into the room. Who am I? Imagine being over 70 years old, looking back over an entire lifetime and saying, I'm still trying to figure out who I am. But here's the part that hit me even harder. I don't even know where to start, to be honest with you. That sentence has stayed with me because someone somewhere listening to me right now is somebody who may be 25, somebody may be 42, somebody may even be 58, somebody may be 73, and you're thinking, Jeff, that's me. I've been existing, I've been functioning, I've been surviving, I've been taking care of everybody, I've been fulfilling roles, but somewhere along the way, I lost me. Or maybe you never really got the opportunity to meet yourself in the first place. Today, I want to talk specifically to you. This episode is simply called Who Am I? So let's talk about the Lyft ride I can't forget. The Lyft ride I can't forget. See, one of the things I've learned from driving for Lyft is that sometimes somebody gets into your vehicle thinking they're simply getting a ride from one destination to another. But what happens between point A and point B becomes much bigger than transportation. Sometimes strangers becomes teachers, sometimes conversations become sermons. Sometimes the passengers who gets into your car leave something behind that you carry with you long after they've gotten out. And recently I met a sweet elderly woman named Holly. We started talking, nothing unusual, just conversations. But somewhere during the ride, she took one of my podcast cards and on that card, she saw the words, "Who am I?" She looked at it and almost immediately said something that caught my attention. She said something along the lines of, "I'm over 70 years old and I'm still trying to figure out who I am." And suddenly, this wasn't just another Lyft ride. This wasn't small talk anymore. This was somebody opening the door to a room inside of herself that maybe had been closed for a very long time. And she began talking about her life. She shared that she had grown up through adoption or foster care. And as she spoke, I could hear something underneath the words. And what I heard was pain. See, there are some kinds of pain people don't have to announce. You can hear it, you can feel it. Time doesn't always erase pain. Sometimes time just teaches us how to carry it more quietly. And as Holly talked, my eyes started watering because sitting behind me was somebody who had lived more than 7 decades. And somewhere inside that grown woman was still a little girl asking questions. Where did I come from? Why did this happen to me? Where do I belong? Who am I? And then she said what might have been the saddest part of the entire conversation. She said, "I don't even know where to start." And I thought, my God, how many people are walking around feeling exactly like that? Maybe they're not 70, maybe they're 30, maybe they're successful, maybe they're married, maybe they're even CEOs, pastors, teachers, nurses, mothers, fathers. Maybe everybody around them thinks they have life figured out. But when the room gets quiet, they're still asking, who am I? See, you can live a long time without really knowing yourself. And here's something we don't talk about enough. Age and self-awareness are not the same thing. You can get older without getting closer to yourself. You can accumulate birthdays without accumulating understanding. You can become an expert at fulfilling roles. You really can, while remaining a stranger to your own soul. Because from childhood, most of us are immediately given identities. Somebody says you're the smart one, you're the difficult one, you're the quiet one, you're the strong one, you're the too sensitive one, you're the responsible one, you're just like your father. You'll never amount to anything. Why can't you be more like your sister or brother? And eventually, what somebody said about you starts becoming what you say about yourself. See, that's how identities gets hijacked. See, sometimes we don't discover ourselves. We inherit somebody else's definition of us. And if you're not careful, you'll spend 40, 50, 60, even 70 years defending an identity you never chose. And that's why I told Holly something that I want somebody listening today to hear. It's not too late to meet yourself. You can be 25 and still rediscover yourself. You can be 45 and rediscover yourself. You can be 70 and rediscover yourself. You can be 85 and discover something about yourself you never knew. And as long as you're still breathing, there are still pages of you left to read. So where do I start? Where do I start? See, when Holly said, I don't know where to start, I started thinking about how many people need more than encouragement. Sometimes saying go find yourself sounds good, but what does that actually mean? Where do you start? So I want to give you some principles, and I'm calling them the identity principles. Because discovering yourself isn't about creating some completely different person. It's about uncovering the person underneath everything life has piled on top of you. So I investigate your story without letting it imprison you. See, the first step is investigate your story. You cannot understand who you are if you are afraid to look at where you've been. You have to ask yourself, what happened to me? What did I experience? What did I learn from it? What did I begin believing about myself because of it? And see, for someone who grew up in foster care or adoption, there may be questions about belonging. For somebody who experienced abandonment, such as myself, maybe you developed a fear that everybody eventually leaves. For someone who was constantly criticized, maybe you become a perfectionist because you've learned that mistakes meant rejection. For somebody who had to become the adult too early, maybe you spent your entire life taking care of everybody except yourself. Investigate it, but listen carefully and hear me clearly. Your history can explain you without having permission to define you. Your childhood is a chapter. It is not the entire book. What happened to you is part of your story. It does not get to become your identity. See, you may have been abandoned, but abandoned is something that happened to you. It is not who you are. You may have been rejected, but rejected is an experience. It is not your name. You may have failed, but failure is an event. It is not your identity. See, there is a difference between saying I experienced rejection and saying I am rejected. Watch the language you use around your life. Watch the language you use around your life, because eventually your words become mirrors. D, detach from the labels you didn't choose. The second principle is detach. Detach, because some of you can't discover who you are because you're still carrying descriptions other people attached to you. Imagine walking through life with sticky notes attached all over your body. Not good enough, too loud, too quiet, too fat, too skinny. Not smart enough, problem child, black sheep, failure, divorced, broken, rejection, abandoned, troublemaker, different. And after carrying those labels long enough, you forget they were stuck onto you by somebody else. You started believing they came printed on you. So today I want you to start pulling them off one by one, because everybody who had an opinion about you did not have authority to define you. Somebody else's inability to recognize your value does not decrease your value. See, a diamond does not become worthless because somebody mistook it for a rock. And maybe that's what's happened. Maybe you spent years around people who couldn't recognize what they were looking at. Don't spend the rest of your life agreeing with somebody who misunderstood you. E, explore what makes you come alive. And here's number 3, explore. See, when you're trying to rediscover yourself, ask, what makes me feel alive? Not what earns me money, not what makes people proud, not what everybody expects me to do. What awakens something inside of me? When do you lose track of time? What conversation energizes you? What do you naturally care about? What have you always wanted to learn? What would you try if you weren't worried about looking foolish? See, some of us stop exploring ourselves because life became all responsibility. Work, bills, children, responsibilities, relationships, appointments, deadlines, responsibilities, obligations, repeat. It all goes over and over again. Relationships, appointments, deadlines, obligations. Relationships, appointments, deadlines, obligations. Children, family, finance, work. It's a constant, repetitious activities. And somewhere inside that routine, curiosity died. But you have to bring it back. Try something, take the class, paint, dance, travel, write, garden, sing, learn how to play a different instrument or learn how to play an instrument. Go fishing, take yourself to lunch. Sit beside the water, start a journal, volunteer, start that business that you've been always wanting to do. You don't discover yourself exclusively through thinking. Sometimes you discover yourself through doing. Experiences introduces you to parts of yourself that contemplation alone cannot reach. And notice who you are when nobody needs anything from you. This one is big. Notice yourself when nobody needs anything from you. Because a lot of people have built their identities around being usefulness. Your mom, your dad, your grandma, your grandpa, you're the supervisor, you're the caretaker, you're the dependable friend, you're the church worker, you're the one everybody calls when everybody and everything falls apart. But here's my question to you. Who are you when nobody needs you? See, some people become uncomfortable when they are not helping someone else because being needed become their source of identity. They've never learned how to simply be. I want you to understand something here. Your value is not determined by your usefulness. You're allowed to exist without performing. You're allowed to rest without earning it. You are allowed to enjoy your own company. You are allowed to have desires that don't benefit anybody except you. Sometimes discovering yourself means learning that you are a human being, not merely a human doing. Whew. I tell y'all something. It is hot out here recording this episode on this pool deck. I will be so glad when we find our Who Am I studio, Who Am I podcast studio, because I love doing this by the poolside, but I am burning up. I am burning up because it's getting hot out here. However, I can't take my clothes off because we're recording this episode. All right, so I digress. Oh man, I just had to hydrate for a second. I love y'all because y'all accept me for who I am and I accept you for who you are. That what makes us a community. That what makes us family. All right, let's go back. All right, I digress. So remember, sometimes discovering yourself means learning that you are a human being, not merely just a human doing. So tell yourself the truth. We have to tell ourselves the truth. See, self-discovery requires honesty. It requires honesty, not condemnation, but honesty. So you have to ask yourself, what am I pretending not to know? What relationships have I outgrown? What am I afraid to admit that I want? Where am I unhappy? Where am I unhappy? And what am I tolerating? What do I keep doing because I'm afraid of disappointing people? Who do I become around certain individuals? Where am I shrinking? Ask yourself that. Where am I shrinking? Where am I making myself smaller just to make someone else bigger? Where am I pretending? Where am I performing? See, you cannot find the authentic you while constantly protecting the counterfeit version. I like that. Let me say that again. You cannot find the authentic you while constantly protecting the counterfeit version. And sometimes the most powerful sentence you can say is this isn't working for me anymore. That doesn't make you selfish, it makes you aware. See, you cannot heal what you refuse to acknowledge, and you cannot change a life you're unwilling to examine. Identify your values. Identify your values. See, you have to identify what matters to you, not what your family told you should matter, not what social media says should matter, not what everybody around you values, what matters to you. Integrity. Does integrity matter to you? Does freedom? Does faith? Does peace? Does family? Does creativity? Does service, adventure, compassion, growth, justice, or even joy? Does that matter to you? See, your values becomes a compass when life gets confusing. See, when you know what you value, decisions becomes clearer. Ask this, does this decision moves me closer to what I value or further away from it? See, if peace is one of your core values, stop repeatedly giving access to people who destroy it. Uh-oh. If family matters, make sure your calendar reflects it. If health matters, your habits should eventually reflect it. If faith matters, create room for it. Identity isn't just what you say. Identity appears in what you repeatedly prioritize. Try again without apologizing for your age. Try again without apologizing for your age. See, this principle is for Holly. And it's for everybody who thinks they've missed their opportunity. Try again. I don't care how old you are. Stop telling yourself, I'm too old. It's too late. I should have done this years ago. Maybe you should have, but you didn't. So what? See, the question isn't what should have I done 20 years ago. The question is this: what can I do with today? You cannot drive forward staring continuously in the rearview mirror. There is a reason the windshield is bigger. You've got more to see ahead than what's behind you. Maybe you're 70 and learning yourself. Beautiful. Start at 70. Maybe you're 60 and discovering a passion. Start at 60. Maybe you're 45 and rebuilding. Build at 45. Maybe you're 28 and beginning again. Begin again. You are never too old to become more honest about who you are. Why? You get to participate in who you become. You get to participate in who you become. And here's the final principle. You get to participate in the creation of your next chapter. That is exciting. See, sometimes people think discovering themselves means there is some finished version hidden somewhere inside them. But identity is both discovery and development. Some parts of you are uncovered, other parts are intentionally built. You get to decide, I want to become more patient. I want to become more courageous. I want to become more disciplined. I want to become more compassionate. I want to become more adventurous. I want to speak up for myself. I want to establish boundaries. I want to laugh again. I want to trust again. I want to live again. You are not merely discovering who you were, you are participating in who you're becoming. And that, my friend, is so powerful. So, what Holly reminded me was this. Holly may never know the full impact that conversation had on me, because when she said, I'm still trying to figure out who I am, it reminded me why this podcast is called Who Am I? See, that question isn't reserved for teenagers. It isn't reserved for somebody going through a midlife crisis. It's a lifelong question, because every new season may require you to meet yourself again. Marriage can introduce you to a different version of yourself. So can parenthood. Divorce can, retirement can also do that. Grief is one of those things that can introduce you to a different version of yourself. Retirement, divorce, success can also, failure can reintroduce you. Moving to another city, losing a job, getting a promotion, children leaving home can also introduce you to a new version of yourself. And getting older can also do the same. It can also do the same. You can know who you were at 30 and need to rediscover who you are at 50. You can know who you were at 50 and meet somebody completely different inside yourself at 70. That's not failure, that's growth. Because you're not a statue, you're alive, and living things changes. So here is your starting point. Here's your starting point. So maybe you're listening today saying exactly what Holly said. I don't know where to start. Start here. Get a piece of paper. At the top, write, who am I? Then underneath it, do not write your occupation. Do not write mother. Do not write father. Do not write husband. Do not write wife. Don't write pastor, supervisor, teacher, retired. Instead, start with, I value, I enjoy, I believe, I need, I want, I am learning, I am healing from, I am proud that, I am becoming. Now we're getting somewhere, okay? We're getting somewhere here, because the question, who am I, doesn't always need one gigantic answer. Sometimes the answer emerges one honest sentence at a time. So here's the mirror question. And tonight, I want you to reflect and think about this. When the house gets quiet, I want you to stand in front of a mirror, not to look at your wrinkles, not to inspect your weight, not to judge your hair, not to critique your body. Look into your own eyes and ask, who are you? Then ask, what happened to you? Then, what do you need now? And finally, who do you want to become from here? Who do you want to become from here? Don't rush the answer. Please don't. You might cry, but that's okay. That's okay. You might not even know. That's okay as well. Because saying, I don't know, can actually be the beginning of discovery. See, the problem isn't not knowing, the problem is never asking. So, to Holly, my friend, if somehow you ever hear this episode, I want to tell you something. That little girl inside of you who spent years wondering where she belonged, she still deserves to be heard. She still deserves compassion. She still deserves to dream. And she still deserves to discover who she is. See, your age doesn't disqualify you. Your history doesn't disqualify you. Your unanswered questions don't disqualify you. You don't have to understand your entire life before you start enjoying what's left of it. And you don't need permission from your past to create a beautiful future. Thank you. Thank you for getting into my vehicle that day. Thank you for taking that podcast card. And thank you for reminding me that sometimes 3 little words, who am I, carry a lifetime of questions. So, family, before we close, let me bring you back to today's pre-check. If you couldn't mention your job, your relationship, your accomplishments, your titles, your failures, or what anybody else thinks about you, and who you would say you are, and if you still don't know, don't be ashamed. Get curious. See, your answer is still unfolding. Maybe the goal isn't to wake up one morning and say, I finally figured myself out completely. Maybe the healthier statement is, I'm finally paying attention to myself. Because self-discovery is not a destination where you arrive and never move again. It's a relationship. And see, a relationship with yourself, and like every meaningful relationship, you have to keep showing up. Keep asking questions, keep listening, keep learning, keep forgiving, keep growing, keep becoming. Because you may have spent years knowing everybody else's needs and never knowing your own. You may know what your spouse likes. You know your children's favorite food. You know your boss's expectations. You know everybody's birthday, everybody's schedule, everybody's problems, everybody's opinions. But now is time to meet you. And maybe today you don't need another 5-year plan. Maybe you don't need every answer. Maybe your only assignment today is to become curious about the person looking back at you in the mirror. So ask yourself, what makes me happy? What makes me feel safe? What drains me? What restores me? What do I believe? What am I carrying that doesn't belong to me anymore? What part of myself have I neglected? What would my life look like if I stopped living according to everybody else's expectations? And most importantly, who am I becoming? Because you're more than what happened to you. You're more than the family you came from. You're more than the people who left. You're more than the mistakes you made. You're more than the occupation. You are more than your age. You are more than the labels people placed over your life. Your story is still being written. Your story is still being written. And as long as there is breath in your body, you still get to participate in what the next chapter says. So whether you're 17, 37, 57, or 77, keep asking the question, who am I? Not because something is wrong with you, but because there is always more of you worth discovering. So I leave you with this final reflection. So today, remember the identity principles. I, investigate your story without letting it imprison you. D, detach from labels you didn't choose. E, explore what makes you come alive. N, notice who you are when nobody needs anything from you. T, tell yourself the truth. I, identify your values. T, try again without apologizing for your age. Try again without apologizing for your age. And why? You get to participate in who you become. And here's your challenge for this week. Don't ask everybody else who they think you are. Ask yourself. Spend some time with you. Take yourself somewhere quiet. Turn off the noise. Put the phone down. Sit by the water. Take a drive. Open a journal. Pray. Reflect. And listen. Because beneath the expectations, beneath the trauma, beneath all the titles, the responsibilities, beneath everything you had to become just to make it this far, there is still a person waiting to be discovered. And maybe you spent your whole life searching everywhere else for that person, but perhaps the person you've been searching for has been with you the entire time. So remember, you are not your past. You are not your mistakes. You are not the labels someone placed on your life. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. So until next time, pause, reflect, refocus, and never stop discovering who you are. So before we move forward, I want you to pause for just a moment. Take a breath. Wherever you are, whatever you're carrying, this next part is for you. Let's speak life over ourselves out loud if you can, because what we say in this moment has the very power to shift how we walk into the rest of our day. So let's begin with our affirmation. I am not defined by my past, nor limited by my mistakes. I am growing, learning, and becoming who I was created to be. I have values beyond titles, roles, and expectations. I choose honesty over fear and growth over comfort. I am allowed to change, heal, and evolve. I walk with purpose, clarity, and courage. I am becoming more aligned with my true self every day. And who I am is enough. So as we close today's episode, I want to thank you for taking this time for yourself. If something you heard inspired you, challenged you, or made you pause and reflect, please don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with someone who may need it. Invite them into the conversation. See, this podcast grows when we grow together, my friend. I cannot do this without you. See, we grow together through shared stories, honest reflections, and real connections. Every listen, every share, every conversation helps create a community rooted in purpose, rooted in faith, rooted in hope, rooted in love, rooted in trust and truth. So until next time, keep reflecting, keep becoming, and remember, you matter. This is the Who Am I podcast, and let's walk this journey together.
Who am I? Yeah, I'm more than the pain, more than the pride. Who am I? Who am I? Walking in purpose, no mask, no disguise. This is my voice, my rise, my life. Welcome to Who Am I?